The challenge. The intergalactic Titan Games were the greatest competition in the universe. Warriors, athletes, and champions from hundreds of planets came to prove they were the strongest. The games were brutal, testing strength, speed, intelligence, and endurance. Only the best survived. On the massive stadium screens, the audience saw the reigning champion, Zyra of Xanthos. She stood tall, her blue skin glowing under the bright lights. She had won the Titan Games 3 times in a row. No one had ever beaten her. Zyra raised her arms, and the crowd cheered. She smirked, looking at the weaklings who dared to challenge her. Especially the humans. Humans. Zyra laughed, her sharp teeth showing. They are the weakest species in the galaxy. Slow, fragile, and small. They'd break too easily. The crowd laughed with her. No human had ever won a single event in the Titan Games. They always lost. They were too weak. The announcer's voice echoed across the stadium. And now, our next challenger, representing Earth, Adam Carter. The laughter grew louder as a human stepped onto the field. Adam Carter was not special. He was not big like the warriors from other planets. He had no claws, no armor, no special abilities. He looked normal. His brown hair was messy. His body was lean but not muscular. His hands were wrapped in simple bandages, and his uniform was plain. Zyra narrowed her eyes at him. This was a joke. Adam looked up at the crowd, listening to the laughter. He had heard it all before. Humans were weak. Humans couldn't compete. Humans didn't belong. He didn't care. He wasn't here to prove them wrong. He was here to win. The stadium shook as the announcer continued. The first event, the Titan Sprint. The ground opened, and massive obstacles rose from the earth. Towers of metal, walls of fire, spinning blades, and crushing pillars. The race was not just about speed. It was about survival. Zyra cracked her knuckles. This will be over quickly. Adam smiled. We'll see. The announcer raised his hand. He. The race began. Zyra exploded forward, her powerful legs launching her ahead. The other aliens followed, moving with superhuman speed. Adam, he didn't rush. He watched. He studied the course as he ran. The first obstacle, a wall of fire. Zyra jumped through it without hesitation. Other aliens followed, their bodies immune to heat. Adam knew he couldn't do that. His skin would burn. Instead of running through, he saw a pattern in the flames. There were gaps, small moments when the fire flickered down for a second. He timed his movement perfectly and slid through the gap without getting burned. The second obstacle, spinning blades. Zyra smashed through them, her alien strength breaking the metal apart. Adam. He ducked and weaved through the gaps, moving smoothly. One by one, the aliens slowed down. Some were too reckless and got injured. Others used too much energy trying to brute force their way through. Adam. He was still going. The third obstacle, the crushing pillars. Huge stone blocks slammed into the ground, crushing anything in their path. Zyra, full of confidence, leaped through. She barely made it, rolling on the other side. The crowd gasped. Many aliens failed this part. Some got knocked out of the race. Adam. He stopped and watched the rhythm of the pillars. 1, 2, 3, go. He dashed forward at the perfect moment, slipping between the pillars without touching them. The audience fell silent. This human was still in the race. Zyra glanced back and scowled. This was not supposed to happen. The final stretch, the Wall of Titans. A massive vertical wall, 100 feet tall, with no ladders, no ropes. Just strength and skill. Zyra jumped, her powerful limbs grabbing the wall. She climbed with ease. Other aliens followed. Adam reached the wall and took a deep breath. He knew he couldn't outmuscle them, but he didn't need to. He ran towards the wall, and at the last moment, kicked off the ground. Using momentum, he grabbed a small ledge, then another, then another. He didn't climb like the others. He parkoured his way up. Zyra reached the top first and turned around, expecting to see Adam far behind. But he wasn't. He was right behind her. The audience gasped. Zyra's eyes widened. Adam landed at the top with a grin. The race was over. Zyra had won, but only by a second. For the first time, a human had almost kept up. Zyra's fingers tightened into a fist. This was not over. Adam Carter was not weak, and he was just getting started. The first test. The stadium was still buzzing with shock. A human had almost kept up with Zyra. Impossible. Zyra sat in the competitors' lounge, watching the replay of the Titan sprint on a giant holographic screen. She clenched her jaw as she saw Adam Carter's calculated movements, his ability to adapt rather than rely on brute force. A low growl rumbled in her throat. This human, he should have lost. Nearby, two alien competitors, massive, armored warriors from the planet Gorvok 9, laughed. One of them, a brute named Krask, grunted. He got lucky. The next event will crush him. Zyra exhaled sharply. Luck runs out fast in the Titan games. Across the room, Adam sat alone. He stretched his sore arms, feeling the exhaustion in his muscles. Every competitor here was stronger, faster, and more powerful than him. But he had something they didn't. He was human, and humans never gave up. The announcement. Event 2. A deep voice boomed across the stadium. Next event. The trial of might. The ground trembled as giant pillars of stone rose from the earth. At the center of the arena, a massive boulder, nearly 10 times the size of Adam, emerged from the ground. The crowd roared in excitement. The challenge was simple. Push the boulder up the steep incline to the finish line. No tricks, no shortcuts, just pure strength. Zyra grinned. This time, the human wouldn't last a second. The competitors lined up. Adam stared at the monstrous boulder in front of him. It was as big as a transport truck. He placed his hands on the cold surface and took a deep breath. A loud horn blared. The challenge had begun. Strength versus strategy. Zyra dug her feet into the ground and shoved her boulder forward with effortless power. The rock lurched forward, rolling like it weighed nothing. The audience cheered, watching her move at an incredible pace. Other aliens followed. The strong ones surged ahead, their powerful limbs making the challenge seem easy. Then there was Adam. He pushed. Nothing happened. He pushed again. Still, nothing. The crowd burst into laughter. Even the announcer chuckled. Looks like Earth's champion is stuck. Zyra smirked. This was exactly what she expected. But then, something changed. Adam stopped pushing. Instead, he stepped back and studied the incline, his eyes scanning the ground, the angles, the way the boulders moved. The aliens were struggling now, slowing down. Some of them had used too much energy at the start, and their muscles were tiring. Adam knelt down and dug his fingers into the dirt, feeling the texture. He wasn't the strongest, so he had to be the smartest. The human way. Instead of brute force, Adam moved to the side of the boulder and started tilting it slightly. He wasn't pushing the whole thing. He was leveraging its own weight. Using momentum. With careful movements, he shifted the balance, letting the rock roll forward naturally. Instead of forcing the boulder up, he was guiding it. The crowd fell silent. Zyra noticed. Her boulder was far ahead, but she could see Adam gaining speed. He wasn't using strength. He was using his brain. Her fingers tightened. The gap was closing. The aliens grunted in frustration, their brute force failing them as exhaustion crept in. Some of them started falling back. Adam. He was still moving forward. The final stretch. Ira refused to lose. She pushed harder, her muscles burning, her pride demanding victory. Adam kept his pace steady, never overexerting, never stopping. He used the boulder's own weight against itself, shifting it whenever needed. The finish line was close. Zaira was in the lead, but Adam was right behind her. The crowd held its breath. With a final mighty push, Zaira shoved her boulder across the line. It slammed down, dust rising in the air. She had won, but only by a few seconds. Adam's boulder rolled in right after hers. The audience was stunned. This wasn't supposed to happen. A human was supposed to be last. Zaira turned, chest heaving, staring at Adam. "How?" she demanded, stepping closer. "You have no strength. How did you keep up with me?" Adam, breathing hard, looked at her with a small grin. "Strength isn't everything." Zaira's eyes narrowed. For the first time, she felt something new. Not anger, not amusement. Doubt. And doubt was dangerous. Strength isn't everything. The arena was silent. The moment Adam Carter crossed the finish line, the crowd didn't know whether to laugh, cheer, or be shocked. A human, a species known for being weak and fragile, had nearly matched Xera of Xanthos, the strongest athlete in the galaxy. Zaira stood at the top of the incline, her breath heavy, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. Her boulder sat behind her, a symbol of her dominance. But now, for the first time, it didn't feel like a victory. Adam had no super strength, no special powers, no enhanced body. Yet he had still finished right behind her. Strength isn't everything. His words echoed in her mind. Zaira's pride burned hotter than the twin suns above them. She had spent years proving that only the strongest survived. She had crushed warriors bigger, faster, and stronger than herself. But Adam Carter was none of those things. And yet, he was still here. Her eyes narrowed. She wasn't going to let a human make a fool out of her. The next challenge, the trial of the mind. The massive screens above the arena flashed with bright, glowing letters. Next, EVENT, trial of the mind. The crowd stirred. This event was different. The Titan Games weren't just about brute strength. They tested every part of a warrior. And now, it was time to test intelligence. Zaira smirked. This would be easy. She had trained her mind as much as her body. She had outsmarted many warriors before. Surely, a human couldn't compete here either. The competitors were led into a massive, circular chamber. The walls were covered in strange, glowing symbols. Floating platforms shifted in midair, forming a twisting maze. A booming voice echoed across the room. "Your goal is simple. Escape." The walls shifted, the floor trembled, and suddenly, the maze came alive. Traps emerged, hidden lasers, shifting platforms, bottomless pits. Competitors had to find a way through, using logic, memory, and adaptability. Zaira grinned. This was where she would leave the human behind for good. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1, begin. The battle of wits. Zaira launched forward, her mind sharp, her focus unbreakable. She studied the patterns of the moving walls, predicting their shifts. Other competitors struggled, making mistakes. Some fell into traps, some made wrong turns. Zaira was flawless. She moved with precision, calculating her every step. But as she climbed onto a high platform, she looked back, and there he was. Adam, not just keeping up, studying. Zaira frowned as she watched him. He wasn't rushing like the others. He was observing. She saw him stop at a locked door. The symbols on the wall glowed. There was a puzzle to solve before it would open. The alien competitor next to him tried brute force, punching the door. It didn't budge. He tried again. The wall zapped him with a pulse of energy, sending him flying backward. Adam. He just smiled. He traced his fingers over the symbols, reading them carefully. And then, with 3 simple movements, he solved the puzzle. The door slid open. Zyra's stomach tightened. She moved faster, climbing through the maze, pushing herself harder. But every time she glanced back, Adam was still there. Not because of power, but because of his brain. Zyra grit her teeth. This was impossible. Humans weren't supposed to be this smart. The final puzzle. The last section of the maze was the hardest. The competitors reached a massive, floating platform. Above them, a network of invisible paths twisted in midair, forming an invisible bridge. There was only one correct way across. Step on the wrong spot, and you fall. Zyra stared at the floating paths. She took a deep breath. She had trained for this. She had studied advanced alien mathematics, physics, and probability. She could calculate the safest path in her mind. She took her first step. The platform held. She smirked. Easy. Behind her, other competitors hesitated. The fear of falling was too great. Some made wrong guesses and vanished into the darkness below. And then, Adam stepped forward. Zyra waited for him to fail, but he didn't. He paused, looked at the bridge. Then he bent down and touched the air. The audience gasped. His fingers met something invisible, and suddenly, the bridge lit up. A hidden pattern revealed itself. Zyra's eyes widened. He wasn't guessing. He had figured out the trick. The bridge wasn't invisible. It was just cloaked by alien technology. The touch of a human hand had disrupted it for a second. Adam now saw the path clearly, and he ran across without hesitation. Zyra growled. She sprinted after him. The final jump was a long gap. Zyra leaped first, landing hard on the final platform. Adam followed, landing right next to her. The trial was over. The survivors had made it through. Zyra turned to Adam, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "You solved it," she said through gritted teeth. "You saw the path." Adam wiped sweat from his forehead. "You were overthinking it," he said with a small smile. Zyra's fists clenched. First, he almost kept up in strength. Now he had beaten her in intelligence. This human wasn't just lucky. He was a real threat, and she was not going to let him win. The mental war. The atmosphere in the Titan Games arena had changed. At first, the audience mocked Adam Carter, a human in the games. Ridiculous. Then they were shocked when he nearly matched Sarah in the Titan sprint. After that, they doubted their own beliefs when he kept up in the trial of might, despite his lack of strength. And now, after the trial of the mind, where he had outsmarted some of the best alien warriors in the galaxy, there was silence. Not mockery, not disbelief, just uneasy silence. Because now, the crowd was asking itself something they had never considered before. Was a human actually a real contender? Zyra's fury. Zyra of Xanthos stood in the competitor's lounge, fists clenched, jaw tight, heart pounding with frustration. She should be celebrating her victories. She had still finished ahead of Adam Carter in both physical trials. She had still solved the maze faster than most. She was still the undefeated champion. And yet, she felt like she was losing. Not in the rankings, but in something deeper, something inside her. Zyra had fought warriors who were stronger than her, faster than her, more ruthless than her. But she had never fought someone like Adam Carter. Someone who refused to break. Someone who wasn't afraid of her. Someone who kept coming back. She turned, scanning the room. Adam sat in the corner, alone, sipping a bottle of water, stretching his arms. He looked calm. Too calm. Zyra stormed toward him. She stopped in front of him, arms crossed. "How are you still here?" she demanded. Adam looked up, raising an eyebrow. "I walked in," he said casually. Zyra's eyes narrowed. "Don't play games with me, human," she hissed. "You shouldn't have made it this far. You should have been eliminated in the first round." Adam took another sip of water. "You sound upset." "I'm not upset," she snapped. "I'm just confused." "Confused about what?" Zaira leaned forward. "You are not strong. You are not fast. You have no natural gifts. You don't belong here. So tell me." She glared into his eyes. "How are you still here?" Adam met her gaze without fear. And then he smiled. "Because I don't need to be stronger than you," he said. "I just need to be smarter." Zaira's fingers tightened into fists. She hated that answer, because deep inside, she knew it was true. The next event, Endurance of the Gods. The stadium rumbled as the next event was announced. Next, challenge, Endurance of the Gods. The competitors gathered at the starting line. Zaira recognized this one. It was brutal. A gravity chamber. The rules were simple, but deadly. Competitors would enter the chamber, where the gravity would increase every few minutes. It would start at normal gravity, then twice the normal pull, then 3 times, then 4. And it would keep going, until only one person was left standing. Zaira grinned. This time, there was no trick, no strategy to outthink, just pure willpower. And humans were weak. They wouldn't last long. Adam Carter wouldn't last long. The test begins. The doors to the chamber sealed shut. A countdown appeared on the walls. 10, 9, 8. Zaira rolled her shoulders. She had trained in high gravity since childhood. She had sparred under 5 times the normal gravity of her homeworld. This was her domain. She glanced at Adam. He stretched his legs, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. He wasn't afraid. That annoyed her. The countdown hit 0. The chamber activated. The weight in Zaira's limbs doubled instantly. For the first few rounds, it was easy. The weaker competitors, those with lighter frames and lower stamina, dropped out first. Some collapsed as soon as the 3rd increase hit. By the 5th level, half the competitors were on the ground, panting, unable to move. By the 7th level, only 5 warriors remained. Zaira stood tall, arms crossed. Her body ached, but she had trained for this. Then she looked to her left. Adam Carter was still standing. His legs trembled. Sweat poured down his face. His breathing was heavy. But he was still standing. Zaira frowned. He was human. He should have collapsed long ago. How? The human factor. By level 8, only 3 remained. Zaira, Adam, and a monstrous competitor from the planet Jormak Prime. The Jormak warrior, a towering beast with 6 arms and steel-plated skin, suddenly collapsed. His massive body hit the floor. Now, only 2 remained. Zaira and Adam Carter. The announcer's voice boomed. Final stage, 10 times normal gravity. Zaira gritted her teeth. This was it. The final push. Her limbs screamed with pain. The weight was unbearable, even for her. She looked at Adam. His body was shaking violently. His muscles looked like they were ready to tear apart. And yet, he was still standing. His legs started to buckle. Then he forced them straight again. Zaira watched in disbelief. This wasn't strength. This wasn't skill. This was something else. Something only humans had. She saw it in his eyes. That refusal to quit. That insane, stubborn, impossible, unbreakable willpower. Adam Carter should have fallen. But he didn't. He wouldn't. Because humans did not break. Zaira's mind screamed. She had fought against strength. She had fought against speed. She had fought against intelligence. But she had never fought against this. Against human determination. Her vision blurred. Her breath faltered. Her knees shook. And then, for the first time in her life, Zaira of Senthos collapsed. The world spun as she hit the ground. And the last thing she saw was Adam Carter still standing. The breaking point. For the first time in 3 years, Xyra of Xanthos lay on the ground, her body refusing to move. She had always been the strongest, the most unbreakable, the one who never fell. Yet here she was, defeated, and above her, still standing, still breathing, still refusing to break, was a human. Adam Carter's entire body shook violently. His muscles were burning. His knees felt like they were made of shattered glass. His lungs fought for every breath. But he was still standing. The announcer's voice echoed across the stadium. Xyra of Xanthos has been eliminated. The winner of the endurance of the gods, Adam Carter. The crowd erupted. Not in mockery, not in laughter, but in something new. Shock, respect, even fear, because the galaxy had just witnessed something impossible. The aftermath. Xyra didn't move as the medical team rushed in, scanning her for injuries. Her pride hurt more than her body. She had never lost, and she had never thought she would lose to a human. Above her, Adam stumbled, his vision blurry, his body on the edge of collapse. The gravity had pushed him past his limits, but his mind had refused to give up. As he fell to his knees, the medics rushed toward him. But before they could help, a massive blue hand grabbed his wrist. Adam turned his head. Xyra was staring at him. Her breathing was ragged, her expression unreadable. But her golden eyes held something new, something Adam hadn't seen before. Respect. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, with an exhausted chuckle, Adam collapsed, and the entire stadium erupted into cheers. The challenge. When Adam woke up, his entire body ached. His arms felt like they had been replaced with iron rods. His legs felt like concrete. He was lying on a medical bed, wires attached to his chest, machines monitoring his vitals. A deep voice interrupted his thoughts. "You should have lost." Adam turned his head. Xyra was standing at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. She was no longer angry. She was something else. Curious, frustrated, determined. Adam tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "Guess humans are tougher than you thought." Xyra narrowed her eyes. "You didn't win because of strength. You won because you refused to give up." Adam smirked. "Yeah, that's kind of our thing." Xyra stepped closer. "I don't like losing, human." "Neither do I," Adam replied. A long pause. Then Xyra did something that shocked everyone in the room. She held out her hand. Adam blinked. A handshake. This was the same warrior who had mocked humans, the same warrior who had called them weak. Now she was offering respect. Slowly, Adam reached out and shook her hand. Xyra tightened her grip. One more challenge. Adam raised an eyebrow. Another event. She shook her head. Not a test of strength, not endurance, not intelligence. She smirked. A real fight. Adam's heart skipped a beat. A duel? One-on-one. Warrior against warrior. A final, true test. The stadium would go insane. A human versus the greatest champion of the Titan Games. Adam looked into Xyra's golden eyes and saw the fire burning there. She had to know. She had to know if she could beat him, or if humans really were something greater than she thought. A slow smile spread across Adam's face. "All right, Xyra," he said, shaking her hand. "Let's settle this. The final duel is set." The next morning, the stadium overflowed with energy. The giant holographic screens flashed one announcement over and over. Special exhibition, Meitishi. Xyra of Xenthos Adam Carter. A duel. No obstacles. No races. No puzzles. Just combat. The strongest alien warrior versus the most unbreakable human. The galaxy would finally have its answer. Who was truly stronger? And as Adam Carter stepped into the arena, stretching his sore muscles, he smiled to himself. Because for the first time since the games began, he knew Zaira wasn't laughing at humans anymore. She was taking him seriously. And that was already a victory. The final showdown. The entire galaxy was watching. The Titan Games had seen legendary battles before, but nothing like this. A duel between Sarah of Xanthos, the undefeated warrior, and Adam Carter, the human who refused to break. Aliens from across the stars placed bets. Some still believed Sarah would crush the human in seconds. Others had begun to doubt. Because Adam had already done the impossible. He had kept up. He had outlasted. He had proven himself. Now, only one question remained. Could he win? The Arena of Titans. The duel would take place in the Colosseum of Titans, a massive circular battleground with towering stone walls and a shifting floor. There were no weapons, no tricks, just two warriors. The match would end when one could no longer fight. A single massive gong sounded, shaking the air. The stadium erupted as Sarah and Adam stepped onto the battlefield. Zaira cracked her knuckles, her golden eyes locked onto Adam. He rolled his shoulders, stretching his arms. His body was still sore from the endurance test, but he ignored it. The moment they entered the arena, everything else disappeared. No crowd, no cameras, just the fight. The announcer's voice boomed. Begin. The first clash. Zaira moved first. She exploded toward Adam, her body a blue blur, her fist aimed straight for his head. Adam barely had time to react. He ducked, feeling the wind of her punch fly past his ear. He countered, aiming a sharp jab at her ribs. But Sarah was faster. She twisted, her tail whipping forward like a spear. Adam threw up his arms to block. What a.m. The force sent him skidding backward, his boots scraping against the stone. His arms throbbed from the impact. If he had taken that hit directly, he would have been down already. Zaira smirked. You're quick, but not quick enough. Adam exhaled, shaking out his arms. We'll see about that. Speed versus strategy. Zaira rushed in again, throwing a series of lightning-fast punches. Adam dodged, ducked, sidestepped, but she was relentless. Every time he tried to counter, she was already gone. Her speed was inhuman. A punch grazed his shoulder. Another smashed into his side, making him stumble. The crowd cheered wildly. Zaira pressed her advantage, delivering a powerful spinning kick. Adam barely avoided it, but she followed up with an elbow strike to his chest. Food. Adam staggered backward, coughing. Zaira grinned. You're tough, but you can't keep up. Adam wiped blood from his lip and smiled. You talk too much. Zaira's grin faltered. Adam wasn't afraid, not even after taking direct hits. And that's when she realized he was studying her. The human counterattack. Adam stopped trying to match her speed. Instead, he waited. He knew he couldn't overpower Zaira. She was faster, stronger, but she was aggressive. She relied on overwhelming her opponents. So Adam did what humans did best. He adapted. Zaira lunged at him again, fist flying. Adam didn't dodge completely this time. Instead, he sidestepped just enough, letting the punch barely graze past him. Zaira was already moving into her next attack, but Adam was ready. He grabbed her extended arm and used her own momentum against her. Wham! Zaira was flipped over his shoulder and slammed onto the ground. The crowd gasped. Zaira rolled to her feet instantly, eyes wide with surprise. She had never been thrown like that before. Adam smirked. You're fast, but you rely on it too much. Zaira's nostrils flared. I won't fall for that again. Adam shrugged. I'll just have to find something else. Then, for the first time in the fight, Zaira felt frustration creeping in. The turning point. The battle raged on. Zaira kept attacking, but now Adam was countering. He wasn't just reacting anymore. He was predicting her movements. Every time she tried to overwhelm him, he redirected her attacks, forcing her to waste energy. She threw a kick. He dodged and countered with a low sweep. She lunged. He twisted and slammed an elbow into her ribs. She punched. He slipped to the side and delivered a sharp strike to her jaw. Crack! Zaira stumbled backward. The crowd fell silent. Zaira touched her lip and saw blood. Her own blood. She looked at Adam, breathing heavily, battered, bruised, but still standing. Still fighting. Still defying her. And deep inside her, something shifted. For so long, she had believed strength was everything. But Adam wasn't stronger. He wasn't faster. And yet, she was the one struggling. How? She clenched her fists. She had to know. She had to push him further. The last exchange. Zaira took a deep breath. She charged, faster than ever before, using everything she had. Adam braced himself. The final clash. Zaira swung with full power. Adam dodged, but barely. He countered. Zaira blocked. She went low. Adam jumped. For a moment, they were evenly matched. And then, wham! Zaira hit Adam with everything she had. Crack! Adam crashed onto the ground, panting. He couldn't get up. It was over. A long silence followed. And then, the gong sounded. Winner! Zaira of Xanthos. The crowd exploded in cheers. Zaira stared down at Adam. She had won. But somehow, it didn't feel like a victory. Because Adam was smiling. He had lost. But he had forced her to fight harder than anyone ever had. And as he lay there, exhausted, he chuckled. Guess humans aren't so weak, huh? Zaira looked at him and smiled back. No, she said. I don't think you are. For the first time in history, a human had earned the respect of the greatest warrior in the galaxy. Humanity's greatest strength. The crowd's thunderous cheers echoed through the Titan Colosseum, shaking the walls with pure energy. The match had ended. The battle was over. Zaira of Xanthos had won. But no one was looking at her. All eyes were on Adam Carter, the human who had fought like no other. The aftermath. Adam lay on the ground, his chest rising and falling in deep, labored breaths. Every muscle in his body felt shattered. His ribs ached from Zaira's final strike. His arms trembled with exhaustion. And yet, he was smiling. Zaira stood over him, her golden eyes studying him with something new. Not amusement, not arrogance, not even just respect. Something deeper, something like understanding. She had fought the strongest warriors in the galaxy. She had defeated monsters with claws, giants with armor, beings with lightning-fast reflexes. And yet, this human, this man with no enhanced strength, no genetic advantages, no weapons, had forced her to fight harder than anyone ever had. Zaira extended a blue-skinned hand toward him. Adam blinked, then grinned as he grasped it. She pulled him to his feet. The moment their hands touched, the stadium roared. It was not the cheer of victory. It was the cheer of a moment that would be remembered forever. A new legend had been born. Not about a champion, but about a human who had proven the galaxy wrong. The interview. After the match, the competitors were taken to the Grand Hall, where the top warriors were celebrated. Zaira sat beside Adam, arms crossed, still studying him. "How are you still smiling?" she asked. Adam, with an ice pack on his ribs, chuckled. "Because I had fun." Zaira frowned. "You lost." "Did I?" Adam smirked. "I came here to prove something. And now, I think I did." Zaira glanced around the hall. Alien champions, former skeptics, now looked at Adam differently. No more mockery. No more whispers of weak human. Just respect. Zaira exhaled. "Maybe you did. A group of intergalactic reporters approached them. The interviewer, a tall reptilian being with shimmering red scales, held out a microphone. Adam Carter, you are the first human to compete in the Titan Games and make it this far. Tell us, what is humanity's greatest strength? Adam leaned forward. The whole galaxy was watching. And with a calm, confident grin, he said, "We don't quit." Silence. Then, an eruption of applause. The challenger becomes the legend. After the interview, Hira and Adam stood at the balcony overlooking the vast, neon-lit city below. "You're famous now, human," Hira said. "The galaxy knows your name." Adam smirked. "And yet, my legs still hurt too much to enjoy it." Hira let out a genuine laugh. Then she turned serious. "You should train." Adam blinked. "Huh. You're strong," Hira admitted. "Not in the way I expected. But your mind, your spirit, it's powerful. If you trained like us, if you learned to fight like a true warrior, you might." She hesitated. "You might actually beat me next time." Adam's eyebrows raised. "Next time?" Hira extended her hand, a challenge. "Come back next year. Fight me again." Adam grinned, shaking her hand. "You're on." The galaxy had learned something new that day. Strength was not just muscle and power. True strength was never giving up. And humanity. Humanity had that strength more than anyone. A new beginning. A year later, the Titan Games began again. The competitors lined up. The crowd cheered. And at the center of the stage, two warriors stood face to face. Hira of Xanthos, Adam Carter. The rematch was about to begin. And this time, the entire galaxy was watching.